Salvete discípuli, soy el Tutorísimo, tu profesor favorito, y en el vídeo de hoy vamos a ver la última unidad de geografía, que es the Tertiary Sector, el sector terciario. For that purpose, we're going to use, as usual, our notes. Here I have a copy, and the presentation that I am about to show you. So, let's get started. So, the tertiary sector is the third economic sector we are going to study, the third and the last one, and this is working? Yes. And in this unit we are going to talk about what is the tertiary sector in general, and then we are going to focus on the most important activities within this sector. They are transport, tourism, trade, telecommunications, and other ones such as banking, healthcare, and education. So let's start talking about the tertiary sector in general, and at first we have to define it. What is the tertiary sector? The tertiary sector is this economic sector that involves all activities that provide services. So it includes all activities involving the provision of services. As you can see here, this sector is one of the most important in the economy. In fact, in the developed countries, it accounts more than the 70 or 75% of the GDP, the gross domestic product. If you remember, the GDP is the economic indicator that measures the wealth of a country. So as you can see here, for example, in North America and in Europe, the active population involved in the tertiary sector is more than 60%. This is an indicator that tells us that these are developed countries. So, what kind of activities can we find in this sector? Activities such as medical care, or education, or tourism, or retail, or transport, or telecommunications, or culture, or internet activities such as this beautiful streamer you have right here, or sports events. And these activities, we can classify them according to who is the manager, so who manages them, in public activities, the ones that these services that are provided by the administration, private services, which are provided by private companies, and mixed services. These are the services that are provided both by the public administration and the private companies. And here you have some examples of them. So this is the summary of this point. Remember that you may pause this video if you want to take some notes, but we have to go on, and we are going to we're going to study the first main activity of this sector, which is transport. What is transport? Is the movement of both people and goods from one point to another using a vehicle or a mode of transport. We can classify the transport according to the mean of transport, not the mode they are using. We can classify them by land, by water, or by air. By land, we have two types of transport, by road and by train. The first one is by road. This is a map of all the roads of the world. As you can see, roads are very easy, relatively easy to build. They are relatively cheap, and this is the most used mean of transport, or mode of transport. So that is why you have a lot of roads all over the world. And some beautiful pictures. This is the biggest or the widest highway in the world, the Katy Freeway in Texas, the United States. This is the most, the roads are used by both particular cars and by trucks. The first to transport people, to transport passengers, the second to transport goods. We also have buses or motorcycles, and this mode of transport is used both to transport goods on people, and is the best one in short to intermediate journeys. Here you have, remember when I just told you that the roads, you can build a road in almost every place. Here you have some beautiful roads in the world. Maybe you have been in one of them. I am not going to stop in each one of them. Well, this is the highest bridge ever built, the Millau Bridge. And let's jump to the other mode of transport, which is performed by road, which is the railway, the trains. So as you can see, there are less railways than compared to the roads, because a railway is more expensive to use and you need certain conditions in order to the railway to work. For example, you may use them in, or you may build them in straight lines, because trains cannot do very strong turns. So trains can move in both conventional or high-speed rail networks. Trains are used both also for goods and for passengers, and they are the best or the most efficient in medium distances. And some popular or some important trains, this is the Trans-Siberian, which goes from Moscow to Vladivostok, crosses all Russia, and these are the fastest trains right now. The high-speed trains, the French TGV, we have also in Spain El AVE, the Shinkansen or the bullet train in Japan, and this is the fastest train in the world right now, up to 600 kilometers per hour. This is a maglev, a magnetic levitation train prototype of China. This is another maglev, but this is working in Shanghai. And this is a freight train, a train that transports goods. As you can see here, they are transporting, I don't know if this is coal or iron ore, I'm not sure. But as you can see, it is way long. It's several kilometers long. That is why trains are very efficient to transport goods in medium distances. And also we have a specific type of passenger train which goes under the cities, which is the subway or the underground. This one is the beautiful Moscow Metro. Then we are going to switch to the air transport, and the air transport is performed by planes. Is one of the most widely used, and it is the fastest one of all of them. That is why it is the most efficient for medium to long distances. And they carry usually, or most of the journeys, they are carrying passengers. Okay, they can also carry goods, but since a plane is very expensive for these goods, it is only used for precious goods or for perishable products. And the routes they move across are between airports. Here you have the airports of the world, and here are the most used plane travels all over the world. As you can see, most of them are concentrated in Europe and North America, and between them, and also some nodes, more important nodes in the east of Asia. This is a one of the biggest passenger planes, the Boeing 747 and the Airbus A380. For goods, we have these cargo planes. The most or the biggest one is the Antonov 225, and these are the world's busiest airports, being the first the Atlanta airport, because it's the hub that connects North America with Europe. And finally, we go to the last mode of transport, which is the transport by water. This is by ship or by boat. And this form of transport, before like 100, well, not 100, but I don't know, half a century ago, this was the main mode of transport for passengers to cover long distances, for example, to cross the Atlantic. But since the invention of the airplane and the generalization of plane travels, the transport by boat has been most of it used to transport goods. Okay, mostly for heavy goods, because it is very cheap, it is very easy to move these heavy goods by water, and there are in each vessel, in each boat, you can fit a lot of tons of goods. And this, as you can see here in these containers on this freight vessel. As you can imagine here, I don't know what is the capacity of these containers, but you can carry hundreds or even thousands of, well, yes, for sure, thousands of tons in each ship. And also you can carry petrol, like this petrol vessel, and also right now you can carry, of course, passengers, but passengers in boats are reduced to these touristic cruises or to some very short travels performed by the ferries. And for this water transport there are two infrastructures which are crucial, which are the Suez Canal, which joins the Mediterranean Sea and the Red Sea, so ships don't need to circumnavigate Africa, and the Panama Canal, which also joins the Caribbean Sea, thus the Atlantic Ocean and the Pacific Ocean, so ships don't need to go and circumnavigate South America. These are satellite pictures of both canals, Suez Canal and the Panama Canal. This is the Mediterranean Sea and the Red Sea, and this is the Caribbean Sea, the Atlantic Ocean and the Pacific Ocean. Here you have the world's busiest ports. Most of them are the Chinese one, because China is the number one producer of goods of the world, so they need to transport them. The Shanghai port is the busiest one of the world. Here you have some pictures and you can see how big this port is. And all of these are heavy goods. So this is the summary of transport. Remember, you can pause this video if you want to take notes, but we have to move on. The next important activity within this sector is tourism. What is tourism? Well, this is tourism. This is the tourist going up to Everest. Tourism is the movement of people away from their regular home or from their place of residence to another place with a leisure or for a leisure purpose and more than a day, for a period longer than a day. Well, this is not very strict because you can go on tourism within the day, but the official definition says is that it is for a period of longer than a day. And this activity started at the end of the 19th century and the beginning of the 20th century with the noblemen and noblewomen, or the people who have money, the rich, the wealthy people. For example, you have here some English tourists who are having a picnic in an Egyptian temple. Later, the tourism became general, so many other people of the lower classes could go on vacation, on holiday, and this type of tourism, the sand and beach tourism, became very popular. This is Benidorm in the 1960s, and this is nowadays how it looks like. So there are several. Well, before that, what are the most preferred or the most visited locations in the world? First is always France, and in the second and the third place we have ourselves, the Spanish, and then the Americans. Depending on the year, sometimes the United States is the second and sometimes we are the third, but more or less we are France, Spain and the United States are the top three of tourist location arrivals. And here you have another map. Here you can see it on a map. The darkest red countries are the ones that are most visited. And here you have another ranking. So what type of tourism do we have? We have cultural tourism, we have rural tourism, we have nature tourism, we have sand and beach tourism, then park tourism and cruise tourism. We are going to stop in each one of them right now. First, we are going to talk about cultural tourism. This tourism is very important because it's this type of tourism in which people go to visit historical cities or museums or some kind of cultural heritage. What are the most visited monuments in the world? Here you have Beijing, Paris, Washington, Rome, Agra in India, Athens, Paris one more time, St. Petersburg, Paris one more time, that is why France is the most visited country in the world, Rome again, Paris, maybe you have been or you have visited one of these monuments. I don't want to stop in each one of them because there are a lot, and I don't want this video to be very long. This is Egypt, Mexico, New York, and the most visited monument in Spain is La Sagrada Familia de Barcelona. Also, regarding museums, which are also they are also a very visited location within this cultural tourism, we have the Louvre, o como se diga, Museo del Prado, Madrid, the British Museum in London, the Hermitage in St. Petersburg, the Uffizi Gallery in Florence, or the Met Museum in New York. Also, this within this, or included in this type of tourism, this cultural tourism, we have the visits, or we can include the visits to sports events like the Olympics, or another type of celebrations which are globally renowned, such as the Carnival. The most important carnivals in the world are the ones in Venice and in Rio de Janeiro in Brazil, and also in Tenerife, and Cádiz. Then we have ecotourism. This kind of tourism is concerned with exploring the natural world. And within this type of tourism, we have several subtypes. The rural tourism, which is the one you go to the countryside and to experience the traditional lifestyle or the traditional gastronomy or whatever. And you are usually provided with this type of accommodation, these traditional country homes. And also we have, the rural tourism is very important in Spain, and for sure you have practiced it. Then we have nature tourism, which is the one in which tourists go to study local wildlife, like in a safari. They are very popular in Africa, in countries like in Kenya or Tanzania. And also there's a kind of nature tourism to admire natural landscapes. The most popular natural landscapes are the Yellowstone Park in the United States, the Grand Canyon in the United States, Cataratas de Iguazú in Argentina, Niagara Falls in the Great Lakes, Victoria Falls in Africa, the Perito Moreno Glacier in Argentina, this forest which is called Yangyaye or something like that. My Chinese is not very good, in China, or Bora Bora in the Pacific, or this beautiful landscape, El Salar de Uyuni in Bolivia, Pamukkale in Turkey, the Giant's Causeway in Northern Ireland. And finally, the last type of ecotourism is to practice nature-based sports, this kind of adventure sports, climbing, canoeing, hiking, cycling, rafting, like in this picture, but the most practiced one is skiing in these ski stations or ski resorts. Then we have sand and beach tourism. This one is the most popular, the most profitable, and the one who attracts the largest volume of tourists, and the one who provides the best resource or best source of income. And this is the most popular in Spain. And what are the most visited locations for this kind of tourism? Cuba, Punta Cana, Mexico, the Polynesia, Indonesia, Thailand, Rio, and etc. I'm not going to stop in one of them, and of course Benidorm. Finally, we have other types of tourism, and for example, we have them parks, which are leisure facilities which are close to the cities or close to resorts, and they receive a lot of visitors. Disney World in Florida, in Paris, Portaventura in Tarragona, Terra Mítica in Benidorm, o el Parque Warner in Madrid. Or the Wizarding World of Harry Potter, I think this is in the United States. two. Legoland in Denmark or the Ferrari World in Dubai or in Abu Dhabi in the Emirates. Then we have the sea and river cruises, which are passenger ships with a lot of commodities which travel around several locations, for example the Caribbean or the Mediterranean, this is Venice, or the Norwegian fjords, or rivers such as the Nile in Egypt. This is the summary, and let's go for trade. What is trade? Trade is this economic activity involving buying and selling products and services. So this is the inter-exchange of both of this kind of goods and services, products and services. And this is Mercury, which is the god of trade. And first, before trade, well, the trade was performed by bartering, which is exchanging a good for another good, for example in this picture. But later, to facilitate these exchanges, the money appeared, and specifically the coins. These are the first coin that appear in Greece, well, in Turkey particularly. Then the Greeks extended it across all the Mediterranean. This is a Greek drachma, a Roman coin. This is a golden ass or ace, I don't know the name in English. This is an Arabic dinar it's a gold coin from Al-Andalus, and this is a Spanish coin, un real de a ocho, which is the most widely used coin throughout history. So depending on where the transaction, this exchange or this buying or this selling of a product or a service is done or is performed, we can distinguish between domestic and international trade. First, the domestic trade, it takes place within the borders of a country. We can classify it in wholesale trade, which in Spanish is mayorista, or el mercado mayorista, which is carried out by companies, not by individuals, by companies, and they buy large amounts of products, as you can see, palés, directly from the manufacturer, okay, from the producer, and then they are going to sell it to the retailers. But first, there are some exceptions. There are some wholesale traders, for example the Costco, which sells directly to the customers, but this is an exception, okay? Finally, then, or the other type of domestic trade is the retail trade, el minorista o la venta al por menor en castellano, and the retailers sell these products directly to consumers. For example, this video game store. So every store or every seller who sells directly to a customer, it is considered to be a retailer. For example, shops, supermarkets, hypermarkets, and also the internet sellers. It doesn't depend, despite the name in Spanish, mayorista y minorista, it doesn't depend on the size of the store or the market. For example, El Corte Inglés is also retail trade, and shopping center is comprised of a lot of retailers. And also in this kind of markets, small market, mercadillos como lo llamamos en España, it is also considered to be retail trade. But if the trade is taking place between countries, it is considered to be international trade. This kind of trade involves importing, so buying from a foreign country, and exporting, selling to a foreign country. The difference between imports and exports is is recorded in the trade balance. Okay, if it's positive, it means that exports are greater than imports. In this map, the green countries. If it is negative, the imports are greater than exports. In this map, the red countries. Usually, the developed countries are, depending, their trade balance is negative because they import a lot of raw materials and they export manufactured products, while the underdeveloped countries, their trade balance tends to be negative also. Well, it depends, because they import manufactured products and they export raw materials. The trade balance also depends a lot on the price on what you are importing or exporting. These are the most valuable exports in the world, which is crude oil, cars, and oil, again the top three. And these are the countries whose trade balance, or well, not whose trade balance, whose trade volume is the highest. Okay, the United States, China, Germany, etc, etc, and the European Union as a whole is the first one. This is a map of what is the biggest import of every country and the biggest export. If you are not able to read it, you can see our biggest exports are cars, like in most of the European Union. Biggest import means in value, okay, in price. And also we have to talk in this trade that many countries have joined together to form trading blocks. Why? This is done to encourage the trade within their members. For example, in the European Union, there are no tariffs, there are no taxes for the domestic, well, not domestic, for internal trade. And such as the European Union, we have a lot of trading blocks all over the world, being the most important NAFTA, which right now has another name, but is the North America Free Trade Agreement between Mexico, United States and Canada, or Mercosur, which another name is ALADI in South America, or the ASEAN or APEC in the Southeastern Asia, or some others in Africa. So this is again the summary of the trade, both domestic and international. Then we are going to talk about telecommunications, which are systems. These systems, telecommunication systems, are long-distance systems that use cables or electromagnetic waves. There are all these kind of devices that allow the transport of information, television, radio, or data sharing between computers, which is the most important one, which is the internet, which is the one. It's the most important advance, and in my personal opinion, it's the most important invention of the 20th century. This is the share of population which uses the internet. As you can see, most of them are in the developed world, the first world. This is an statistic again by continent, and this is what happens in the internet within a minute, as you can see. But this access to the internet is not as easy as, for example, in our country, because many countries practice the internet censorship, and also the internet is controlled by a few companies. As you can see here, Microsoft, American Online, Google, Yahoo, and Facebook. And all of them controls more than 90% of the information of the internet. And speaking globally, all of the means of communication, also television or press, they are controlled by just a bit of just 5 or 6 companies. This also happens in Spain, in which we have 4 or 5 big media corporations which controls all the information, being the biggest one El Grupo Planeta. So this is a very easy part, the telecommunications. We have to know what is the definition, that it's one of the most important areas of economic activity, and the major advance is the internet. Finally, the other tertiary sector activities. There are infinite activities within this sector, but we have to talk about the most important one. For example, banking, which is all these economic processes carried out by banks or any other financial institutions, which administer and lends money, also borrows money, okay? And there are a lot of small banks in every country, and the most important banks of the world, and the ones you are seeing here by capital. And there are also another international funds and organizations such as the World Bank or the International Monetary Fund, but it's enough with that. Then we have education and culture. Education, which is a mixed activity. In some countries, this education, since it's a basic service, is carried out by the state. It's a public service. It's free and universal, most of the countries, but in other countries it is not, as you can see, the red and the yellow countries. Then the culture is, well, the knowledge, ideas, traditions and customs of a country, time or social group, and it is also included in this service. Finally, the healthcare system, which is also a big indicator of the development of a country, and it happens a similar feature than in these countries. Like with the education, in some countries or in most countries it is free and universal, the healthcare, but in other countries it is not free and it is not universal, being the most paradigmatic example the United States. And this is it. La playa de Gulpiyuri en Asturias, precioso sitio turístico. Bueno, 31 minutos no ha estado mal para ser uno de los temas más largos, si no es el tema más largo de geografía, pero bueno, he intentado que todo, dentro de lo que cabe, que todo sea lo más comprensible posible, a la vez que conciso. Si tenéis alguna duda, ya sabéis cómo contactarme, correo, Instagram, Discord, o me busquéis por los pasillos, y si no, me escribís un correo electrónico. Gracias por haber llegado hasta el final, si no te has saltado ninguna parte, y nos vemos en el próximo. Adiós.